Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Monday, December 9th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up an easy NBA winner with the Los Angeles Lakers minus 10.5 as they were able to win that game. I forgot what the exact score was. They won by 17 in the end as the Lakers ended up, the Lakers ended up scoring over 140 points. Anthony Davis had 50, and the Timberwolves just couldn't stop anybody. So it was a pretty easy winner. And we will look to continue our winning ways here on Monday on December 9th. Now, for today's play, that is going to sound very similar to yesterday's play, but I think that is pretty warranted after the performance that the Timberwolves had yesterday. The Timberwolves are actually playing again today, and they're playing against the Phoenix Suns on the road, and we like the Phoenix Suns minus 3.5, which is available on FanDuel at minus 110. I've already discussed Minnesota and why I've been fading them in the last couple of games, mostly just because of the fact that they're in the middle of this long road trip. They've lost 4 straight. You have a very just awful overtime loss to the Thunder over the weekend in which they probably should have won, gave up a full court pass into a layup at the buzzer, and then got smacked in overtime. Then you played the Lakers yesterday, gave up 142 points, and the Lakers in that process also ended up shooting an insane 58.5% from the floor. The Timberwolves simply can't stop anybody, and now they have to play the second end of a back-to-back on the road against Phoenix. And Phoenix, they're not a great team by any means. They're 10-12. They've been okay. The Suns actually won the first game in between these two teams earlier this season by 2. But the Suns, they gave the Rockets a run for their money in their last game. They ended up they've been on a 4-game road stand, but they are officially back at home. I think they'll play well at home in the first game in, I'd say about let me actually check that. Yeah, first home game in over a week. So I think they'll definitely play well now that they return to the desert in Phoenix. And I think that Minnesota, after what they've played like over the last couple of days, and even what they've played like yesterday, now they have to play the second of a back-to-back, I'm just concerned about this team currently. I wouldn't back them at all. I think this team is pretty much a fade moving forward as Minnesota just doesn't guard anybody. And Phoenix will actually be getting Aaron Baines back. He will be playing limited minutes, but at the same point, I think that just his presence alone will definitely help in the low block, trying to box out the likes of Karl Anthony Towns. Both teams play relatively small lineups. I know they do have Towns and Baines, but other than that, though, the Timberwolves' power forward is Robert Covington, relatively undersized. They like to play an up-tempo style. Phoenix likes to play an up-tempo style also. But at the end of the day, I just think Phoenix plays better defense than Minnesota, and I think that Phoenix should be able to get the job done at home. You have seen some line movement in this game. It has gone from minus 3.5 to minus 4 in some spots, but it is still available at 3.5 on FanDuel at minus 110, and that will be the line that we are using, and that will be the play of the day. Now, talking about some of the leans on the rest of the card, I'll start out with Monday Night Football. I know a lot of you wanted to play today on Monday Night Football, but could I really give out a play in an NFC East matchup between Eli Manning and Carson Wentz? Not really. Didn't want to bother. I know money's coming on the under. Makes sense, but both defenses are absolutely terrible. It's a really tricky game to call. It's going to be in Philly. It should be relatively cold. Carson Wentz has looked pretty okay the last couple of weeks. It's just a matter of the fact that Philly's defense is absolutely terrible and they have no wide receivers to speak of. But the Giants are an absolute dumpster fire. They're probably going to end up firing Shermer at the end of the year. I think 9 points might be a bit too much, but I can't trust Philly after losing to Miami to cover the spread. I'll have to lean to Philly, I guess, and just hope they play better at home. But at the end of the day, I'd have to take the under. It's just Philly's defense is bad, the Giants' defense is bad, but I have to assume Eli's just not going to play that well. I mean, you have people that have been injured all year. Evan Ingram's still out. The offensive line is still terrible. That's why Eli pretty much got benched in the first place, as he just simply got sacked all the time and he couldn't generate anything substantial on offense. If Slayton is pretty good, Tate's pretty good, but other than that, though, you don't really have many other weapons. Barkley's great, but he's been pretty quiet so far this season. And Philly, I know Wentz is a solid quarterback. I know the offensive line is really good. They have no deep threats at all in this entire team ever since Deshaun Jackson got injured, and they just nickel and dime the ball down the field. I don't really have any confidence in either of these teams, but I'd have to lean to Philly, especially after Dallas ended up losing on Thursday night. Philly has a chance to get themselves into a tie for the NFC East, and I think that Philly will come through. So lean to the Eagles and lean to the under. I think the Eagles win this game by 10. Now, talking about some of the other games on the card, lean to the Pelicans here, -1 against Detroit. This line just looks really sketchy to me. New Orleans is in the middle of a massive losing streak, and yet they're currently being favored by 1 point against Detroit. I find that very fascinating. Detroit is 2-9 on the road this season, but the spread itself just looks really weird. Pelicans haven't won a game in about 2 weeks, and yet Detroit is still an underdog here, which I find a bit concerning. Lean to the Pelicans there. I think they'll snap the losing streak tonight. Other than that, what else do I like here? I know there's been some injury news with regard to the Clippers and knowing that Kawhi Leonard will not be playing in today's game. Paul George will be, though. He's against his former team in Indiana. I mean, I know that he stopped over in OKC in the middle, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Paul George put in a good performance. Do I like the Pacers moving to a -2.5? No. I know the Clippers are -1 in the opener. I don't really think Indiana should be -2 here. I think that the Clippers could still easily win this game with Paul George alone. That remains to be seen. Who knows? But I'll personally pass on that game. And you have Cleveland versus Boston. Lean to Boston here. I mentioned how badly Cleveland has looked and how it seems like all the players have turned on their head coach. Cleveland has gotten absolutely smacked, and we ended up cashing a play of the day against them on Friday night. Then Saturday, they played the second of a back-to-back. They played against the 76ers without Embiid, and they lost by 47. So, yeah, they're an absolute disaster. I would have to take the Celtics here. 14's a lot of points. The Celtics are still undefeated at home. There's no way I can back the Cavs. It looks like they've completely just folded under Beeline, and I think the Celtics should win this game pretty easily. It's a lot of points, but lean to the Celtics to cover this number. And money has come in on the over in that game from 214 to 216, so I would have a small lean on the over as well. Now, talking about some of college basketball games, there's really not much to talk about. Only 3 games on today's card. You have Columbia versus Duquesne, you have Minnesota versus Iowa, and you have Alabama State versus South Dakota. If I had to lean to one game, I would lean to Iowa, just playing against Minnesota in this one. Iowa, even though they ended up losing over the weekend to Michigan, they still played pretty well offensively. I mean, defensively, they're an absolute nightmare, but Michigan, with the exception of the outlier against Louisville, has actually been one of the best offenses in the entire league. They scored 91 points in a loss to Michigan on the road. That's really not that bad, and I think Iowa should be able to bounce back at home. Minnesota is 4-4 on the season. Iowa 6-3. But at the end of the day, I just think Garza is going to be too much to handle in the low block, and Bohannon's also a pretty solid shooter. Money's coming on Minnesota, but Iowa tends to play better at home, especially in conference play. Home court tends to matter a lot more. So I will lean to Iowa -5.5, as that line is available in some of the offshore markets. Other than that, though, play of the day will be on the Phoenix Suns, -3.5 on FanDuel at -110. Other than that, though, that's going to be this installment of Scott's Selections here for Monday, December 9th, and good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.